Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday, June 18th. And here we are, Juanca Tamayo, JCT for Education for you. And today, couldn't wait for this interview, this conversation. We're going all the way from Miami, Florida to Doha, Qatar. And actually, I have flown direct from Miami. So let's go. Let's move forward. And our guest is ready for the conversation today. So, ta-ta-ta-ta. He's coming up. And I wave to him. Let's invite him over. Ed, thank you for being a loyal watcher of JCT for Education. And Mr. Fred Silva.
Juanca, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing all right.
Assistant Director of Admissions, Northwestern Qatar, Mr. Frederico Silva. How are you? I'm sorry it's late. It's what, 11:02 p.m.?
Yeah, 11 o'clock. It's okay. It's
okay.
actually Thursday here is our before weekend. So weekends are Friday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So completely okay to be out this time.
Thank you. And Ed Busto says it is my best friend on today. So whatever message, what do you want to tell Ed right now?
Wish I could be traveling with him soon, but we'll get there sometime.
Inshallah. So hello to Paulina de Moreno. And Fred, where are you from? Where is that Silva from?
I am from São Paulo, Brazil.
Okay. And where did you grow up? Did you grow up in São Paulo or you grew up in Iowa?
No, I grew up in São Paulo actually for almost my entire life, with the exception of about a year and a half when I moved to a different city in Brazil, moved to Minas Gerais. That's a different state. But other than that, yeah, I grew up, born and raised all the way through high school in São Paulo. And then that's when I moved out to the States.
And one of the things that I love about our conversations is that we find out so much of our own colleagues that we've known for years, that that's their purpose. What high school did you attend in Sao Paulo?
I've attended a state school. So I actually went to a public high school in Brazil. So not very known in the international admissions world, but it's called Ministro Costa Manso. It's a little, typical the public high school, and high school was 3 years back then when I went to school, and that's where I went to school at.
Fred, and how did you learn about Iowa? Because I also ended up living in Iowa, in Dubuque, Iowa for 8 years. How long did you live in Iowa, and how did you ended up down in that beautiful state?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everybody has their Iowa story, right? You never know when you get there, and everybody in Iowa always wondered if I just spun the globe, and that's where my finger stopped, because it's so random to end up in there. My Iowa story actually started a little bit earlier with my older sisters, who did an exchange program. So she was in high school in Brazil, actually attended the same high school as I did. And she's my older sister. So at that point she went to a 1-year exchange program to the States, and that's where she was gonna go. Worked with a company in Brazil that did just that. That was their whole thing, was like, we're gonna match you to a host family. You're gonna go to the US. You're gonna live there for a year, and you don't pick where you go. So lo and behold, it was a family in Iowa that matched up with her. So she went to live in Iowa, and that's how I got to know Iowa. So when I went to Iowa, it was just sort of like, here's an exchange, an extension of our family. I basically had like an adopted American family at that point. So I knew I was going to Iowa. So my geographic point of view in the US was, I'm going to Iowa. I never realized I was going to live in Iowa for that long, but I was going to go that way.
Fred, Dalia, she says hello, and she's right here on our live on Instagram. So, awesome. So you also did an exchange program, or you went directly into University of Northern Iowa for your undergraduate?
I didn't actually. So before I went to UNI, my idea was I was going to go to Iowa for a year, and then I was going to go back to Brazil.
Okay.
And then go to college in Brazil. That was what the plan was. And since my sister lived in a little town in Iowa called Marshalltown, Iowa, which you probably know, living in there, my idea was like, how am I going to go? And at that point, I could not go to high school. So I knew I was going to go to Iowa. how would I do that? And my sister said, you know what, there's a community college in there. So why don't you go to the community college for a year and then come back? And I
Okay.
did. And that was what I went to. But at that point, I said, you know what, why don't I finish this degree? And, you know, when I'm here anyways, and then I'll go back to Brazil. And then that's so I extended a year. And then I said, why don't I just transfer and I continue my education here? And that's where I actually learned about UNI.
Okay.
So
And
that's where I
you
went.
got your degree from UNI. You wanna share your degree in?
So it's a, you know, I have a pretty general degree. I was one of those guys that had no idea what I wanted to major. So I actually study music,
Mhm.
biology, and psychology, all in a
Okay.
combination of a degree. So I have a like sort of a liberal arts degree in that. And
Yes.
then I never wanted to leave college. So my joke is I realized I wanted to stay in college forever. So I continue on, and then I got I went on to the program, which is a master's in education, in post-secondary education and student affairs.
Yes.
And it was sort of my admission counselor who kind of just pointed me out to this, and in a way became my mentor, who knew that at that point, saying, well, if you want to be in a college, why not work at one? Why not make this your career? And that's what I did. And I worked with her. I was her graduate
A-
assistant in the
And that's
admissions office.
Christina Markenstein?
That's yeah, that's Christy.
Christy.
Christy, yeah, exactly. Christy Marchesani. And I worked for her for a little bit, and it's kind of how she started me on this.
Well, if Christy is watching, I will make sure I will send her the copy of this. This is gonna be housed on our For You channel, JCT for Education, and also on IGTV. So actually, going back to Iowa, so I lived 8 years. How many years did you live in the state of Iowa?
I lived I lived about 7 or 8 too. It was close to 8 when I.
It's a beautiful state. I absolutely love it. And I have a question. So would you fly direct from Sao Paulo to Chicago, or you have to go to, like me, through Miami?
I I was able to fly São Paulo to Chicago.
Lucky you.
That was the easiest thing. It was São Paulo, Chicago, and then Chicago, Des Moines, and then an hour of car, or Chicago, Waterloo, or wherever you're gonna go at this point.
Yes,
Although my first time I didn't, I was like, what's the cheapest possible way? So I
of
went from
course.
São Paulo to Miami to New York to Chicago and then to Des Moines. So anyway,
I know, absolutely. So right now we have people turning in. Dalia, Find My Creativity. We also have Ellen Digton and Gina. Un saludo para todos. Hola. And so I remember being in Iowa. Sometimes you will get direct flights into Dubuque through Chicago, but sometimes you have to take the bus from Chicago to Dubuque because it was the cheaper way, and we were college students, so we're always saving the money, man. I know how it goes.
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so from there, you work a couple years in the Office of Admissions at UNI. You say, no mas, I got to move on. And then you went to Michigan to Kettering University. Tell us about that move.
Yeah, so it was at that point I was finishing the master's program and looking for, you know, full-time opportunities in international admissions. That was what I was hoping to be in. And typical student at that point, you know, just applying everywhere I could and just kept looking at different opportunities. And I got a chance to talk to this, you know, institution, which is pretty unique. It's a, you know, you don't find these small engineering type of, you know, STEM related places. And it's a co-op program, so students work and go to school at the same time. And they were looking for somebody who could just sort of, you know, kickstart their international recruitment. They didn't actually have that before. They had, so they wanted to be more intentional about it. And ended up, you know, just saying this sounds like a good opportunity for me. And I feel like, you know, sometimes you know those things. It's when it pushes you out of your comfort, when it actually pushes you there, you just find that you're growing more that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I felt like yeah, you know, was ready for it. So that's where I went there and worked there for a couple of years. And it was interesting. Again, you know, having worked with someone who was just sort of mentoring, like shaping you to who you are. And then next thing you know, you're just like, okay, now it's up to you to come up with the strategy to actually
Yes.
execute that. And you have your connections, but it was nice to actually be able to do that too.
Fred, your international experience started at UNI or it started at catering?
It started at
recruiting?
UNI. Yeah, no,
Okay.
at UNI. I was graduate assistant at the admissions office, but I specifically worked in the international admissions side.
Okay. And then an opportunity came up in the South, so you went to Furman University. That's where
Yes,
I did your flying program in 2015, 16, no,
right.
or 14. The
Yeah, it would have been 14. Yeah,
14, and we named that flying the best flying ever. So,
right.
and it came out with you. I remember Elon. So you were there a couple of years, and then
Hmm.
you say, "Hey guys, I'm moving to Saudi Arabia." You work from King Abdullah University, and now you are at Northwestern University in Qatar. So for you, it has been 5 years living in the Middle East. How is it?
Yeah,
How is that experience? Sao Paulo, coming to Iowa, and then you go to the
yeah.
Middle East.
It's awesome, actually. You know, I never thought when I went to Saudi, I didn't realize that we're going to be just staying here for so long. My wife's from Iowa, so in a sense of like she she wanted to have an experience of living abroad herself in a sense. She wanted to actually be someone who she said pretty much, look, you left your house. I want to do the same thing. And I traveling through the Middle East when I was recruiting, it was actually my favorite location in the world to travel to. I don't think a lot of people have the opportunity to come check this region out. And I sort of really, in the back of my mind, I wanted to actually be able to, if we were going to go abroad, this is where I was wanting to come to. And I had an opportunity to be here. We really enjoyed this. And in Northwestern actually is pretty unique for me in a personal level because it allows me to sort of have a foot in my old life, being that the undergraduate admissions, working with students that are wanting to go to college and the value in American education, but it also allows me to live in a region that I really enjoy. So this is
Okay.
where, we're here, we're settled, we enjoy it.
Ed Bustos, did you recruit with Ed Bustos? He says Habibi.
Right, yeah, exactly. Actually, my first time in the Middle East was traveling with Ed, so he should know that very
And,
well.
and, and for me, I traveled with Ed and also George DePont from University of Tampa. Back in the day, it was an amazing experience. So Ed, you're a legend. I see Carolina Corral Jaramillo. I see Chupi Chupi. I see my mom just joined. So un saludo para todos. JCT for Education just joined. And Ed, sorry, Fred, I want to ask you a question. So, living in Doha, in Qatar, I experienced your flying program for the second
Right.
time. First was Furman, and now Northwestern University in Qatar. Um, you told me about Northwestern University in Qatar around 3 or 4 years ago. It was probably at one of the CIS conferences, and I started learning about your program, reading literature, went online. Friends of mine went for your flying program. Suddenly, last year, you guys generously invited me to visit, and it was another best flying ever. You always put the show. What a lovely university. So we will have students, or we have students that are watching, parents, colleagues, and so forth. Um, why Northwestern University in Qatar?
Yeah, that's it's I'm really happy that you got a chance to come and see it for yourself. I think this is not everybody has an opportunity to experience the place. There's something to be said about actually being in here in the ground and seeing for yourself. We're always going to be highlighting the positives, but it's not until you actually set foot that you start realizing this place exists. I
Hmm.
think it's interesting. Northwestern University already has a great name. It has a fantastic reputation, and Northwestern University in Qatar is able to be in a unique position where they actually build on that reputation of a fantastic university in the U.S., but with a bit of a global span. So I think this is it's something that students, I think, we're more global than ever, and people are actually looking for different opportunities. It's safe to say that I think everybody's going to work in whatever they wherever they end up in the world, they're going to be working at a different environment that involves globalization. Being a global citizen is very important. So I think that unique opportunity to merge a fantastic education with that global opportunity is something that students should really consider. And then you add things like, our size is much more conducive to really, being that small niche type of places where students really can hide that well. You have the backing of an entire country for the infrastructure that we
Yes.
have, the opportunities that we have. You don't see places. Our building is about 3 years old now too, and there's not a whole lot of really new buildings out there that were built from the ground up for an education for communication and journalism. And then you have a region of the world that is, always in the radar, always, racing towards the future. And then on
Yes.
top, and then getting this idea where they value the communication, they value the journalism side, and they want that to be something that, well-educated individuals in an area. I think everywhere in the world, we're in dire need for people to be, ethical contributors to this profession.
What is so amazing, when I had the opportunity to visit your campus, I was blown away. First of all, I felt super safe. What a lovely city, upcoming, a government that is putting all the money and resources into education, into infrastructure. I just finished a symposium called The Future of Everything. And guess what? Qatar is one of the pioneers for actually commercial planes. And there is a supersonic program right now that they are manufacturing everything pretty much in Qatar. And I learned that here in Miami, that your country, the country Qatar, is putting a lot of money into supersonic flying. They believe they're bringing those planes in 3 to 5 years. American Airlines, Delta, United, all of them, they are actually lining up for supersonic flights. So we can go back from Miami to London in 3 hours. Maybe we'll go from Miami to Doha in 5 to 6 hours. But I see people from the US aligning with people from Qatar to make that possible. And can you explain on this vision why you guys want to be so much ahead from the world in terms of education and the consortium of universities, the city consortium that you guys have? Explain that, because that's a fascinating concept.
Sure. So yeah, this is we're part of a consortium of universities here, and there's a place in town called the Education City, and in here, and this is part of something, a larger umbrella, which is called the Qatar Foundation. And under Qatar Foundation, you have 6 American universities, 1 local university, and a couple of European universities, and they're all here to work together. And this is another very unique set of efforts that you don't see in many places in the world. Essentially, what that allows us to do is to focus our efforts and focus our education into what we call our signature programs. But then it allows us to actually work with the other institutions to expand our educational offerings in terms of classes. So I'll give you an example. You can be a Northwestern student, but then you can get a minor in media and politics, where you take a few classes at Georgetown University, a few classes at Northwestern University,
Wow.
and complete a capstone, and then you have a minor that way. And again, you're not going to be able to do that in the US. You're not going to hop on a plane and go from Chicago to Washington, D.C. to take a few classes a week. So that's using something unique to our advantage here. If you want to take a physics course, we're not going to have just any physics course, but you can go to a university that has the numbers to offer a best physics course that you can possibly have. Okay. And then where we come together, things like, our student center is state of the art, where, Northwestern University is quite small if you look at just in its own. We have about 400 students. But when you consider the other institutions, then we're able to offer a student center that has, a small grocery store in it, that has several eating opportunities, that have, state-of-the-art equipment for you to work out. Yeah. The same thing with the residence halls, and you got to experience that. I say that's a cliche that every admissions office in the world will tell you, oh, it's better than my house. Ours is better than my house. I can really tell you that. And we're able to do this because we come together. And it's also a pretty, cool thing for a student to say, look, I go to Northwestern, but my front door neighbor is actually a medical student at Cornell University. You're not going
Wow,
to see
that's
that in many
beautiful.
places.
No,
And
Fred,
go ahead.
just one interruption. Sorry.
No worries.
UK Hans says, just came to say hello to Fred. You're awesome. So that's it.
Awesome.
Andres Tamayo
Thanks.
as well. Just go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
No problem. Hey, no worries. So I think, when you see this, it translates to what your initial question was, which is why is Qatar, at the forefront of this? And I think this is, a hats off to the country to have had the opportunity to say, look, the future of the world is educating people, but instead of actually exporting our citizens, exporting talent, and try to then turn around and import them back in, what they've done is pour their money into attracting and forming talent from here. And being a contributor to the world of education versus somebody who just consumes from other places. And I think that is a physical representation of how much they value their education here in the country.
Fred, I am tempted to say this, so I'm gonna say it as it is. Nobody's paying me, and I have my free opinion. But when I went to your campus, I really fall in love about that global education experience. You guys have something really, really special down there. And I wish, Emily Dobson in Brazil is
Oh,
saying, hello, Education City is like another world. It is unbelievable. Those students are going to be destiny benders, absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to combine here in my message. Thank you, Emily, for saying that. The power of counseling. You and I, we went to schools that we didn't have high school counselors. For act of God and the universe, we ended up being in Iowa. You were in Marshall. I was in Dubuque, and I wouldn't change my story. I absolutely love the story, but you have traveled all over the world. I traveled all over the world, and finding that opportunity, I came back to Miami so excited to share my personal experience. I'm like, I wish students understand the concept of what is being built down there. And now, particularly that the World Cup is coming up, and we will touch up on that on this conversation. But you have a stadium almost done in front of your campus. And I tell my students, if you are a sports major, if you want communications, where do you want to be? You want to be in Doha, you want to be in Qatar, you want to get your education at Northwestern University, because that's where things are happening. We live in this world that things are so immediate. And so I speak really, really highly your residents' lives. They are like, man, it's just something blowing away. The library next to your campus is just, oh my gosh. So for everybody that is watching, please, you just need to go into Google image Northwestern University Qatar, or just contact Fred, and Fred can give you like a tour. Speaking about tours, so people are around the world and they want to join one of your tours, virtual tour. How do we arrange that?
yeah, that's coming up. So at this point, we're in the final touches to launch an actual virtual tour at this point. Once that goes live, it's going to go on our website, and anybody can do that. Until then, they can reach out to us, and we'll try to really convey the message. And there are different places. If you go to our website, there are different already photos where you can really understand. But we'd be happy to actually have a personalized tour with them, having a personalized meeting where we can actually talk about all of our equipment, all of the state-of-the-art labs that we have on campus, and have people experience a little bit of it, even though they might not be able to be in here right now.
You have a person here, Dalia says, happy to participate in your next flight.
Put her on the list.
I know you have the list. So now, when do you guys close your campus because of COVID-19? What happened there, and what's next? What is happening in the summer and fall?
Right. So it was about March, beginning of March, when the decision came, and this is pretty much high level here. So this was a decision at the at the country level where education was going to go online. And that was, make sure that people are safe home. And then we turned the education online then, and then finish the semester then, and then continue to offer some virtual classes online. We're offering a virtual summer program, actually starting on Sunday. So then that next week, pretty much, we'll start on Sunday, 2 weeks, and change it to a virtual program in journalism and film. And that's where it's happening. We're keeping things at online. The difference here is not necessarily, the decisions are in many ways pretty cohesive in the country. So it is the idea to say when the country, there's a implementation plan, or the country announced like a 4-step plan.
Yes.
But they're also monitoring and being pretty data driven. So it is about, look, these are the plans, but they're making sure that we all understand that we're going to get there, but we're going to get there safely. And I think this is where we are right now.
Fred, are you guys still have students on campus living in the residence halls, or most students, they were able to fly back home?
We still have some students on campus. There are plenty of students who have returned home, but there's also many students who chose to stay or could not go back. There's a combination of that.
Okay, so now let's go back. One of the things that I absolutely love was the school, but also you guys are super generous, and also the Qatar Foundation, very generous. Explain us about the loan forgiveness if a student stays there for 3 years working for a Qatari company.
Right. So we're fortunate to be able to offer a full financial aid package to all of our students. So we're one of the few universities out there that when we say we're need blind and we meet need, we mean that 100%. And it is not citizenship based or any kind of that way. So anybody who applies gets admitted. They'll go through a process, and we're going to assess what their financial aid means in the requirements would be, and then we'll meet that. And it's a combination between Northwestern and Qatar Foundation. Qatar Foundation, again, that umbrella that we work, students apply, and Qatar Foundation will offer pretty much the access, which is, I think, a key aspect to a lot of students. There's a lot of bright students out there that lack the access to be the change of their life's history, the change of their family, their countries. And this is where they can have that opportunity. So they can take on what they're going to offer, a financial aid in the form of an interest-free student loan. And then with the opportunity for the students when they complete their education to stay in Qatar, work for a brief number of years in here, and have that loan forgiven. So it's like you would get your salary, you would get your benefit package, and then just by virtue of remaining, keeping your brain here, your talent in the country, they will do that. And that's another one of those, when I say the country's committed to attracting the best and the brightest. You and I went to school in the US, and it's a great opportunity, but the education in the United States was always the come study and then take this with you, and take what you learned with you, and that will change you forever. And that's great. But here is the opportunity to say, come and stay with us. Take the country with us to a knowledge-based economy. And this is where we are here for.
So such an amazing opportunity, and I can't stop telling that story to students and parents. Now, Fred, let's talk about a student in Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras. They got into Northwestern University in Qatar. How do they go about their student visa? What's the procedure?
Yeah, you're gonna love this. They send a copy of their passport to us, and we get the visa for them. That's pretty much the shortest way I can answer that. The visa is in 2 stages in here. So we sponsor their visa. It's all electronic. They send me a copy of their passport. And then with the understanding that when they arrive in the country, they go to a couple steps, including getting the typical medical, the vaccinations and all of that kind of stuff that you have to do before you get the visa. That actually happens once you arrive here. And so once they get here, they go through the same process that I actually did to get what's called the resident card, and I get the resident permit to stay in the country. And it's just pretty much a card and that's it. That's you know, they don't pay. There's no I-20 fees. There's no CVIS fees. It's just a pretty simple process.
It's very simple. I remember when I traveled to Qatar, you guys actually sent me an electronic visa. When I arrived to the airport, like it was seamless. I mean, the process, is it the same for international students?
Pretty much the same
Wow.
process. And then
Wow.
there's a good thing for families too, right? Because then there's a list of 80 different countries that you don't need a visa to come. So for parents, if they want to accompany their children here, they can do that usually very similar, simple too.
Do you get a lot of parents flying to drop their kids off, or
It's
most of them they come by themselves?
You know, it's becoming, I don't get a whole lot of it. There's a good number of students that come by themselves in here, but I'm
Okay.
noticing an increase actually. I'm noticing more and more that families are wanting to check it out too. And I always hear from parents to be like, oh, maybe we'll get a job here. And their kids are like, no, you're gonna get a job back home. Like, you know, let me go to school here. But
Among all the universities that are around this, the compound of universities, what's the total population?
I think it's around about, I would say about 3,000 or so
3,000.
students. Yes, it's not huge. Campus is massive, but it's the student population still, it's just about that.
And for from those 400 students, what percentage, what's the largest percentage besides their own country? What is the second, third largest percentage of coming from the
Huh.
US, Canada, China,
Yeah, it's
Africa?
different. So you know, we're up to, I want to say about 51 countries at this point
Wow.
represented.
Okay.
So there's a lot, and I tell students this, there's a lot of ones and twos in here, you know, where you're the one student from Tajikistan, where you're the one student, you know, the two, three students from Brazil. Like there's a lot of that. So there's not one massive population. It's quite popular. I would say, you know, Pakistan, we have a lot of students from China that are here, but not in the same sheer numbers that you see in the US. I would say sub-Saharan Africa, if you were to combine the continent as a whole, they'd
Hmm.
probably be the closest to being the second. And there's a lot of Eastern African countries such as Kenya, Ethiopia, um, and there's you know, quite a few countries from there too. So
I love airplanes. How many countries do you think Qatar Airways is flying to country-wise?
oh wow, what was their last count? I quite a bit. I want to say they're still flying to what I think around 40 some destinations, even during COVID-19. So you can imagine they go everywhere. It's you know, I'm getting pretty spoiled with this idea of direct flights to just about
Oh my
anywhere I need to
gosh,
go
yes,
to.
yes. I was so happy when I found that direct flight from Miami to Doha. It was the longest flight I ever taken, a 15 hours flight, but it got me one place. I didn't have to go through any airport, nothing like that. So I'm blown away. Now, talking about the airline industry, how are you guys doing in Qatar? Are they not flying right now? They have some humanitarian flights. What are the updates?
Right. So people are still transiting through Qatar, actually. That's still happening. But at this stage, the country, you have to be a citizen to come in to Qatar if you're
Okay.
going to fly in right now. Again, that's part of their opening. They're slowly, you know, transitioning towards there. But right now, there's still quite a bit of flights from the Qatar Airways out there. You're just not going to necessarily do a layover yet.
Yes, Emily says Ed and Fred together again. So a lot of Eds here, Fred. But and then Ed Bustos, I'm not gonna get in trouble with Emirates or Qatar Airlines. They are both
Ah, ah,
really
ah.
good airlines. So I love them both, and they're partnered with American Airlines. So I really like that even better.
There you go.
But anyway, any new majors coming up in the coming month, years?
So, not necessarily any major in the undergraduate level. We're starting to get into some graduate and executive education right now.
Okay.
You know, with the World Cup coming into Qatar, that gives us a lot of opportunities in that route to be, you know, doing things with sports administration, with, you know, communication and that side. And that's, you know, it's not there yet. But, you know, keeping in mind also with the students in here, they can always spend some time in the main campus. They can pick up a minor from Northwestern back home if that's not something that is offered here. So they do have access to a few more, opportunities
Okay.
too.
Hey, Fred, if you get tickets for the World Cup, let me know. I will book my flight on Qatar Airways and go to the World Cup. But I'm sure that you're gonna get some tickets, and please don't forget about us.
Yeah, you always have a place here.
Thank you, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Now let's get deeper here, more philosophical. What's the future of education? What's your take on this?
What's the future? I think it's going to sound like a suspicious and a biased answer, but I think global is the future of education. We're we're no longer country bound the way we were before, and that could be from universities out there that have opportunities with abroad. It could be like what we have, but it could also be opportunities where you study a few years in some places. I don't think we'll ever go back to this 100% bricks and mortar, like the going online everywhere has really taught us a good lesson that there are certain things where students really enjoy being home, being at a home campus. But at the same time, there will also be opportunities to supplement their education virtually, to give more access to people virtually. I can tell you from my summer program, being online this year, we were able to actually bring in students from 11 different countries to participate
Wow.
in the summer program. And, some might have actually gone on a plane and come in to participate, but some might not actually have that access. And that's something that we're able to, again, maybe not a direct substitution, but a supplement on that. So I don't know if
Okay.
that's,
That answers the question, and I
yeah.
think it's going global. And this online education is teaching us a lot. So stay tuned for how institutions are gonna reinvent themselves. Now, one of the questions that I get from parents, and I want you, as one of the people that work at Northwestern University in Qatar, is like, will I get a diploma from Northwestern University? And what's the answer? And if when they go to Doha, they go to Qatar, how many semesters or how does it work for the student
Right.
to come to Chicago to get?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, no, the answer is you will get a diploma from Northwestern University.
Okay,
It does not say Qatar on it. We're
okay,
not a branch campus. We're not an extension of Northwestern University. We are the 12th school of Northwestern University. So we're
okay,
under the same. Our president is the same. Our provost is the same. Our faculty is hired as Northwestern instructors. So you are getting a Northwestern education. You're just getting a Northwestern education with an international twist, is what I would say. Now you can spend what we consider a semester. This is where it becomes more technical and boring, but we're in a semester base here in Qatar. Northwestern in the US is in a quarter system. So you
okay,
can pretty much go and spend 2 quarters in the
okay,
US
okay.
and in Northwestern, and then you can just equates to about a semester, a little bit longer than that. But it's enough to, again, like I said, pick up different minors, have an experience, go to the games and have that opportunity from a Big Ten school in the U.S.
Do they tend to go in their junior year, sophomore year? When do they go to the US?
Yeah, I would say around the junior year. The depends a little bit. They're in which program they're in here. So they're communication or journalism. If they go into the journalism program, there's going to be more of a personalized approach to them to when they go. If they're going to communication, there's something called the communication exchange. So that's kind of just built in a way that they can actually go in their junior years. The journalism students also have something which is nice about Northwestern is a mandatory internship on their third year. So that's
Okay,
something that it's already set up for them. And a lot of them will go to the US or Europe or different parts of the world to do that mandatory internship. They might go to Chicago, but they're not necessarily taking classes. They're actually working at a media corporation. So that's
okay.
another opportunity to kind of just go closer to our home base, but not necessarily there too.
So I want to get technical here. The students that are international students in Qatar, and now they're going to the United States as an international student, they have to apply for a student visa. So if they apply for a student visa, they go to the US Embassy in Qatar. And
Usually.
is that how that works?
That's usually how it works. Yeah. So they
Okay.
would go to the U.S. I don't want to say something is going to be like recorded forever, but I want to say that they'll get something along the lines of like a J1 visa or something that is similar to that, you know, as an exchange
Okay.
student.
Okay.
So
Okay. Because sometimes a lot of countries are required to go back to the home country, so it gets really technical. So I never thought about that when we got in deeper into visas. By the way, I want to say hello to Alex Schultz down there in the office, the whole team, admissions, the students, the faculty. I remember meeting awesome faculty, Northwestern University in Qatar. And I want to say a quick hello to Enrique Mulberger. He worked at Northwestern University in Chicago. And the reason I remember Enrique, his daughters, the twin sisters, Ruth and Mimi, they went to school with us in Iowa. So I just want to shout out to Enrique, a long friend of mine. I used to work at Northwestern University. He actually retired, and now he lives in Chicago. So final thoughts. I don't want to take a lot of your time. Is it 11:41 p.m. for you? Almost will be midnight, and I don't want to take a lot of your time down there. But final thoughts. What have you learned, and any words of wisdom for all of us?
Wow. I'm always looking for words of wisdom myself. I don't know if I'm the one to be really giving those out there. I think, look, one thing, Juanca, you're doing an amazing job. It's people like you, it's people like, you know, Emily Joan, like all, and I know I'm gonna miss people who are really helping drive this conversation of looking outside of their norms for students. You know, when I talked about the global education is out there, it is a difficult conversation for families and students to come to terms with the fact that they're not going to maybe go to the US or to the UK, like to the more traditional route for education. But that's not to say that there's not an excellent education waiting for them out there that might offer things that they don't even know. So I'd say, you know, consider, look into it, you know, don't write it off. You've been here. It's a safe place. It's a welcoming place. And, you know, it's a great way. We thank you for doing this because, you know, I can also tell that everybody said hello to you too, because you left quite the mark here in Qatar. And, but you know, looking forward to continuing to bring this opportunity to the students and to the right students who are out there. And, you know, we thank you for this.
No, thank you, Fred, and thank you, the whole team down there and you too. Today, I was reading one of the questions on the common application for one of the universities is asking the students, what are you doing, or explain a circumstance or situation under COVID-19. And I will tell the students will say, what are you doing? And I say, what am I doing? I'm running lives every day because I want the community to come together for the students' benefits, for our own benefits, to get the latest of the latest information. I mean, you already mentioned a lot of stuff that we didn't know, and just to put everybody on the map, because there are so many opportunities that we take it for granted. And I wish my advisor would have opened up all this range of opportunities. So just considering another awesome institution in the Middle East like you guys is to me is my duty. So I really want to thank you for your time. And one more last question. You're from Brazil. Have you figured out some Brazilian food in Qatar? Any restaurants?
Yeah, believe it or not, we actually have 3 churrascarias here in Qatar. Yeah, you know, so I am not deprived of food. I mean, certainly look at me. I always tell people I'm not deprived of good Brazilian food. So 3 churrascarias in here, and you know, we've been able to have pão de queijo every now and then.
Oh, pão de queijo! I miss pão de queijo. I was with Brazilian friends last night, but they didn't bring pão de queijo. Fred, it's been an outstanding honor having you guys on board, and thank you for your time. For those of you watching, before we go, muito obrigado, Fred, and muchas gracias, Juanca. Fred, thank you. You are my loyal viewer, and I will send you something home. I promise. But Fred, thank you. It's been awesome working with you guys, and mi casa es tu casa. Anytime that you want to come back, just let me know.
Like, thank you so much, Juanca. The honor is mine, and appreciate being part of something so special. Thank you again.
Thank you. And for those of you watching, this video will be housed on IGTV. Also, we will put it on our YouTube account, JCT for Education, for you. Ciao, molto obrigado.
Obrigado a você.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Tchau.
Ciao.